Cassian had never seen a world like the one stretching beneath him. He hovered in the cockpit of a small exploration shuttle, his hands tight around the controls, eyes wide as the pale blue planet spun slowly in the void. The mission was supposed to be routine: scout, gather data, and report. Instead, he felt an inexplicable pull, a kind of magnetic awe, almost like the planet itself was observing him. The alien fleet he had been assigned to monitor descended gracefully, their dark hulls reflecting starlight, but Cassian couldn't take his eyes off the surface. The invaders were confident, experienced soldiers from the Servinax Empire, bred and trained for conquest. 5,000 of them, each a perfect specimen of their kind, armored and armed to the teeth. They expected domination, obedience, fear. Instead, what awaited them was quietly waiting, patient and indifferent. Cassian's calm buzzed. "Report," a voice said, clipped and professional. It was Leora, his partner in this operation, speaking from the observation deck of the mothership. Cassian smiled despite himself. Leora's presence always brought a sense of calm, a tether to reality in the chaos of interstellar duty. "The fleet is preparing to land," he said. "But something feels off. The planet's gravity is stronger than predicted, stronger than we anticipated." Leora's voice softened, almost easing, though worry lurked beneath it. "Careful, Cass. Last time you underestimated gravity, you nearly floated out of orbit." Cassian's laugh was short, but it carried warmth. "This isn't a laughing matter, Leora. These soldiers, they're built for anything, but I've never seen them hesitate. And yet," he trailed off, watching the first dropships pierce the atmosphere, plummeting toward the surface. On the planet, the soldiers disembarked. At first, nothing seemed amiss. The ground looked soft, unassuming, even inviting. Then came the screams, or rather, the attempts at screams choked. Broken sounds as bodies collapsed under weight that should have been manageable. Cassian's stomach turned as he watched armored forms crumple, joints bending the wrong way, exoskeletons cracking like brittle bark. It was horrifying, beautiful in its inevitability. The planet, in its quiet perfection, was rewriting the rules of engagement. He glanced at Leora's feed. Her eyes were wide, not with fear, but with that rare spark she always carried, the one that told him she loved seeing the universe reveal its secrets. "It's not the soldiers," she said softly. "It's the planet. The world itself is stronger than them. It's protective." Cassian nodded. "And we're just observers, maybe too late to help, but early enough to witness." As the first waves of soldiers struggled, humans began to appear small, soft-framed creatures who should have been insignificant. Yet they moved with ease, grace, and an almost careless strength. One figure caught Cassian's eye, a young woman, Aubrey, dark-haired and tall for her kind, sprinting toward the fallen aliens with an efficiency that seemed effortless. She didn't hesitate. She didn't fear. She simply reached down, lifting a heavily armored warrior like he was a child. Carrying him toward a waiting transport. Cassian felt his chest tighten, not because of danger, but because of something else, a strange pull toward her. Watching her in action, there was elegance in her movements, and beneath it, a fierce determination that seemed to echo the planet's own silent power. She was a force, and somehow, impossibly, she was human. Liora single quotes S voice came again, quieter this time, almost intimate. "Cass, you're staring. Again." He laughed, low and warm. "I can't help it. Look at her. She's extraordinary." "Don't get sentimental," Leora teased, though her tone was softer than usual. "We have work to do." Cassian knew she was right, but he couldn't tear his eyes away. The aliens were still collapsing, still writhing under a force they hadn't accounted for, while Aubrey and her team moved with a terrifyingly natural strength. The juxtaposition of fragility and power was mesmerizing. And somewhere deep in his chest, Cassian realized that this wasn't just a mission. It was the beginning of something bigger, something that would tie him to the planet, to its people, and perhaps to Aubrey herself, in ways he couldn't yet understand. The first encounter had ended not with a battle, but with awe, confusion, and a strange, electric connection between observer and participant, human and alien, heart and planet. The universe had just whispered its rules, and Cassian knew nothing would ever be the same again. Oren had always preferred silence. The edges of space offered it in abundance, and he liked to think of himself as invisible, a ghost aboard the orbital outpost circling the contested planet. For years, he had watched fleets arrive and depart, civilizations collide and retreat, yet never interfered. Observation was his art, detachment his shield, until Aubrey appeared. He had first seen her through a distant sensor feed, lifting fallen alien soldiers with effortless strength, her movements fluid and precise. Even from orbit, the grace and power were undeniable. Oren felt something unfamiliar, a tension in his chest, a spark of curiosity that threatened to unravel his careful distance. "She's human," muttered the communications officer beside him, voice flat, matter of fact. "How is that even possible?" Oren didn't answer. He didn't need to. He already knew the answer was irrelevant. What mattered was presence, the tangible pull of someone who altered the space around them, who made him aware of his own heartbeat in ways silence never had. He followed her movements as she led small groups across the alien battlefield, rescuing and redirecting. There was an intelligence behind her actions, a strategic brilliance that mirrored Oren's own calculations, but executed with instinct rather than code. He found himself leaning closer to the observation panel, ignoring protocol, ignoring reason. "She's remarkable," he finally admitted. The officer glanced at him, eyes narrowing. "Remarkable doesn't belong in our logs, Oren. Stick to data." But Oren couldn't, watching Aubrey navigate danger, effortlessly shifting the weight of others. He felt a stirring inside, a desire not just to observe, but to participate, to touch, to understand, when a sudden tremor shook the planet's surface, sending alien troops tumbling again. Aubrey reacted without hesitation. She caught one mid-fall, turned, and launched him toward a hovering transport. Oren's breath caught. She moved like the planet itself, steady, unyielding, yet alive with rhythm. Then something unexpected happened. Aubrey's eyes glanced upward, directly at the outpost, and Oren felt, impossibly, that she had seen him. Panic flickered through his chest, though he tried to suppress it. She couldn't possibly know. She wouldn't. Yet there was a connection, subtle, electric, that made the room feel unbearably small. Oren turned away from the screen, heart racing, mind screaming for logic. "I'm not supposed to care," he muttered, pacing the observation deck. But care was irrelevant. She had already breached the walls he'd built around himself. Her presence a quiet assault. Hours passed, and Oren's colleagues began to leave the observation post one by one, exhausted from the endless, bizarre skirmishes below. He lingered, eyes fixed on the planet. Aubrey's silhouette appeared again, moving between fallen soldiers, her hair catching the sunlight in flashes of gold. He realized she was laughing not out of joy, but defiance. A human laughing while the universe fought around her. Oren felt something he hadn't allowed himself in years. Hope. It was brief. A sudden transmission interrupted his reverie, the alarm blaring. "Unidentified vessel approaching atmosphere," a voice shouted. Oren's fingers flew over controls, calculating trajectories, analyzing potential threats. Aubrey's team would need cover. They were powerful, yes, but alone against the incoming wave. Without thinking, Oren engaged the auxiliary thrusters on the observation satellite, redirecting energy beams toward the approaching ships. Alarms screamed, red lights flared, but he didn't care. For the first time, he acted not as an observer, but as a protector. Below, Aubrey moved with the same calm intensity, guiding the humans in a seamless defense against the intruders. For a fleeting moment, their eyes met hers, steady, curious, his frantic, unmasked. In that glance, worlds collided. They were strangers, observers, soldiers, humans and aliens intertwined by circumstance and choice. Oren realized, as the battle unfolded beneath him, that nothing in his life had prepared him for this. The weight of wanting someone so completely, the fear of exposure, the thrill of connection across the void. He had hidden for years, yet Aubrey's mere existence had rendered his rules obsolete. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that the first glance, the first spark, was not the end of their story but the beginning. The planet below hummed quietly, almost knowingly, as if it understood what was unfolding. And Oren, the silent observer, finally allowed himself to listen to the voice he had long ignored, the one whispering that some Connections, no matter how impossible, were written among the stars. Cassian had never trusted silence. Aboard his drifting vessel, deep in the uncharted sector of the galaxy, the quiet felt like an accusation. He thrived in motion, in the thrumming pulse of engines and the chatter of distant signals. Yet the moment he intercepted Aubrey's signal, everything changed. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant, carried across the void like a fragile beacon. She wasn't calling for help. She wasn't commanding fleets. She was speaking. To someone, "I can hear you," Cassian whispered to himself, adjusting the receiver. He traced her signal to a planet scarred by battles long past, yet alive with flickering life forms and shifting terrain. His instinct screamed caution, but something else, something he hadn't felt in years, urged him forward. He wasn't the type to follow strangers. Yet Aubrey had a pull, a gravity that made even the vacuum of space feel heavy with expectation. He altered his course, threading his vessel between asteroid belts and abandoned war stations. Guided by the rhythm of her presence. When he arrived, he saw her small against the fractured landscape, yet impossibly commanding. Her hands moved with quiet authority, redirecting fallen machines, soothing alien creatures that had survived the skirmishes. Cassian's chest tightened. She was chaos and calm intertwined, a storm contained in a single human frame, and she saw him. It wasn't fear. It wasn't curiosity alone. It was recognition, as if she knew that he belonged here, even before he did. Cassian froze, unsure whether to advance or retreat. The usual confidence, the practiced attachment he carried like armor, was useless. She had pierced it with a single glance. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice steady, but tinged with something unspoken. "Maybe I'm here because I want to be," Cassian replied, and the words startled even him. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she turned back to the creatures, guiding them toward shelter. And Cassian realized she wasn't asking for his help, she was offering him a choice. A chance to stay, to engage, to cross a line he hadn't known he wanted to cross. The hours bled into one another. The planet's surface shivered under distant tremors, echoes of forgotten conflicts. Cassian watched Aubrey work, studied the way she measured risk, the subtle shifts of her expression when a life teetered between loss and survival. He wanted to reach out, to touch the world she moved through, to be part of her orbit. Finally, she looked at him again, and this time, she held her gaze. "You're not like the others," she said, almost softly. "You came here willingly, not for orders, not for glory." Cassian smiled, a rare, crooked thing that felt like it might fracture under the weight of the moment. "Maybe I'm tired of following orders. Maybe I want to follow you." Her lips curved, the faintest acknowledgement of something unspoken. The wind howled across the plains, carrying the scent of scorched metal and alien flora. But for Cassian, it was perfume. It was the signal of possibility. Then came the first tremor that truly mattered, a shift in the planet's core, violent and unrelenting. Aubrey froze for a heartbeat, calculating the risk, the lives at stake. Cassian reacted instinctively, reaching for a control panel on his vessel, launching drones to stabilize falling structures. Their actions, separate but synchronized, created a fragile rhythm, a dance of survival. When the dust settled, they found themselves side by side, hands brushing accidentally, lingering with deliberate intent. The planet around them hummed in quiet agreement, as if acknowledging that two unlikely souls had found a tether in the chaos. Cassian realized then that it wasn't just survival that drew him to Aubrey. It was the unspoken promise of connection, the thrill of finding someone who could see him, not the vessel, not the code, not the mask, but the man beneath it all. And Aubrey, for all her composure and command, felt it too. A warmth she hadn't allowed herself in years, a thread weaving between them, delicate yet unbreakable. In the silence that followed, Cassian finally whispered, "We should see how far this goes." Aubrey met his gaze, steady, defiant, alive. "Then we will," she said. And somewhere in the void, as stars spun endlessly round them, two lives collided quietly, without fanfare, without warning. Yet everything had changed. Celine had never trusted the stars. They were too distant, too indifferent, too sharp when they pierced the thin veil of her ship's viewport. Yet tonight, they felt different, alive, almost whispering. And somehow, She knew the whisper was meant for her. The first sign was a pulse's soft, rhythmic flicker from a nearby sector. Not a natural signal, not a distress call, something older, deeper. Celine traced it with her instruments, navigating through asteroid debris and abandoned satellites, until she found it, a derelict vessel, scarred by fire and age, yet somehow alive. Inside, the air was thick with memory, fragments of conversations, echoes of lives long gone. And then she saw him, Cairo, crouched beside a console, eyes closed, speaking softly to the vessel as if it were a living thing. His presence startled her. Not fear, not anger, but something unnameable, magnetic. "Who are you?" she asked, voice echoing in the hollow chamber. He opened his eyes. Amber light reflected off the metallic surfaces, making them glow like molten gold. "I'm someone who's been waiting," he said simply, and the words had weight, as if they carried centuries of solitude. Celine frowned, scanning for danger. Waiting for what? For someone who understands that silence isn't empty. Cairo replied, that even the quietest spaces can hold life, hope, love. Her chest tightened. She had spent years avoiding attachment, memorizing the cold calculus of survival. Yet standing before him, she felt the impossible tug of connection, as if the universe itself was conspiring to show her that risk could be beautiful. For hours, they explored the vessel together. Cairo showed her hidden compartments filled with alien artifacts, instruments humming with energy she couldn't yet understand. Celine found herself laughing, a sound she hadn't heard in years, echoing back at her from the ship's walls. Then came the tremor, the first real threat. The vessel shuddered violently, an attack from an unseen source. Celine instinctively grabbed Cairo's arm. "We have to stabilize it," she shouted over the alarms. Cairo single quotes S hands moved with precision, recalibrating power conduits, rerouting energy to maintain the fragile balance. Celine followed, guided by instinct and the rhythm of his movements. For a fleeting moment, their hands brushed, lingering longer than necessary. Neither spoke. The storm outside their metal cocoon was deafening, yet inside, time slowed. Every heartbeat magnified. When the vessel finally steadied, they slumped against the wall, breathless. Cairo's gaze met hers, unwavering, and Celine realized she was trembling not from fear, but from the force of something undeniable. "You could leave," he said softly, "but I have a feeling you won't." She let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "I won't," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "Not now. Not ever." They were interrupted by a flicker in the instruments, an approaching fleet, unfamiliar and hostile. Celine's mind raced. "They'll destroy us if we don't move," she said. Cairo single quotes S expression softened. "Then we move together," he said. "No more silence, no more hiding." With a shared glance, they activated the vessel, weaving through the void with uncanny synchronicity. Celine marveled at how seamlessly their movements intertwined, as if their hearts had learned the same rhythm. The hostile fleet fired, lasers cutting across the darkness, but their combined efforts, skill, trust, and an unspoken bond kept them ahead. Alive. Finally, in the calm after the storm, the stars stretched endlessly before them. Celine realized she wasn't alone, not truly. She had found someone who could see through her armor, someone who could navigate the fractures within her and hold her steady. Cairo reached for her hand. This time, no hesitation. "We're not just surviving," he said. "We're choosing." Together, she grasped it, tight, certain. "Then let's choose," she whispered, letting the void swallow their fears. And as the vessel drifted through the quiet cosmos, to hearts once solitary beat as one, daring to hope that love could survive, even in the fracture of light. The galaxy was alive tonight. Celine and Cairo could feel it vibrating beneath the hull of the vessel, a hum that resonated with every pulse of the stars. The hostile fleet had retreated for now, but the tension lingered, like a shadow stretched across the endless black. "They'll be back," Celine said, voice steady, though her hands betrayed her. She watched the instruments, scanning for the faintest signature of pursuit. Cairo moved beside her, calm as ever, fingers brushing hers lightly. "Let them come," he said. "We're not alone anymore. Not ever." A sudden flicker caught Celine's eye, a signal, not from the fleet, but from something older, wiser, something that had been waiting for them in the void. The vessel vibrated in response, its lights pulsing in harmony with the rhythm of the signal. "It's singing," she whispered, awestruck. "Not just singing," Cairo corrected gently. "It's welcoming us, guiding us." The vessel moved, almost sentiently, steering them toward a glowing nebula, colors swirling like liquid fire across the darkness. Celine realized that the fleet's hostility no longer mattered. The universe itself seemed to bend, to make room for them. "We're part of something bigger," Cairo murmured, his gaze never leaving hers. "Something that existed before us, and will continue after." Celine felt a warmth in her chest, a certainty that had eluded her for so long. The stars no longer felt distant, they were companions, witnesses, friends. And beside her, Cairo's presence was more tangible than any celestial wonder. As they entered the heart of the nebula, the vessel responded in ways she hadn't thought possible. Conduits glowed, corridors hummed, and the walls seemed to breathe with life. Celine realized the ship itself had chosen to recognize them, to accept them. It was no longer just a machine, it was a partner, like Cairo, like her. Then came the moment of truth. A crack appeared in the nebula's brilliant expanse, a rift that threatened to swallow them whole. Celine froze. Instinct screamed retreat, but Cairo grasped her hand firmly. "Together," he said. They navigated the rift, weaving through the cosmic maelstrom. The vessel responded seamlessly, guided by their combined resolve. Lightning-like currents of energy danced along the hull, yet they moved as one. Hearts synchronized with every turn and pulse. On the other side, the nebula opened into a vast expanse of serene light. Stars shimmered like a living mosaic, and in that brilliance, Celine felt something she hadn't dared to feel before: hope. Unbroken and infinite. Cairo turned to her, his amber eyes reflecting the brilliance around them. "We've survived," he said softly, "but we've also found each other." Celine let out a breath, the weight of countless lonely years lifting from her shoulders. "We're not just surviving," she replied, voice trembling. "We're alive, really alive." He drew her close, and for the first time, Celine let herself fully surrender to the warmth of another being. The universe hummed around them, a song of stars that no weapon, no fleet, no darkness could silence. "So this is what it feels like," she whispered, leaning into him. "To be seen and loved." Cairo kissed her forehead, a gentle promise that the galaxy itself seemed to echo. "And we'll never hide again." Together, they stood at the heart of the cosmos, two souls entwined amid the radiant chaos of creation. The vessel hummed, the nebula sang, and for the first time in eons, the universe felt like home. And in that brilliance, Celine realized the truth she had been searching for across endless light years. Love was not fragile, not fleeting. It was infinite, just like the stars, just like them. The galaxy had witnessed their choice, and in return, it sang a timeless anthem of courage, connection, and the unbreakable bond between two hearts that dared to trust each other in the void. They were together, and that was enough.